So welcome back to the Weights and Wine podcast, the podcast for women who want to get stronger, feel better and stop overthinking it, all whilst keeping the balance of life. So I'm Sian, I'm the founder of Sian Hill Coaching, based in London, and I work with women online and one-to-one, helping them build strength, lose fat and create habits that actually stick. And you can find me on Instagram at yourcoach_Sian or on Facebook at Sian Hill Coaching. Okay, so today's episode is going to be question and answers. So these are just the top 5 questions that I've picked out that I feel will help with other people as well. So let's get straight into it. Right, so first one today. So this came through on a check-in a few weeks back. So it was, I've never really paid much attention to food, but in my late 60s, what should I actually be focusing on for my brain and body at this stage? So of course, it doesn't have to be in your late 60s. I'm going to talk sort of, just generally in life, really. So where would I start? So let's keep this to simple 3 things rather than lots, because otherwise that will possibly overwhelm a little bit as well, even myself. So number 1 thing, protein, of course, by far the biggest lever that we've got. So what we get as we get older, our bodies get less efficient at using it. So you actually need more than you think. And it's something that comes up quite a lot with my clients, particularly because there's a lot out there now, isn't there, regarding bone density, muscle and, loss of muscle, etc. But also in general, kind of that we need that for our strength and for keeping nice and dense. So we need to try and get as many servings as we can throughout the day, hopefully with each meal as well, 20 to 30 grams. Also the same with our snacks as well. And really, in regards to fitting it in, of course, now whether you're, depending on what diet that you're on, depends on obviously what it is, but you do need to plan. You need to sort of decide what are those proteins that you want to sort of eat and decide ahead of time so that you can start fitting those in. You can swap things in as well, of course. So you've got, your lean types with your chicken or your fish. So of course, white meat tends to be the leaner type of protein. But of course, there's lots of other types of protein out there. So even your legumes, your beans, things like that are great to have. You want an array of protein. So also your dairy, if you eat it, is a great way of having that as well. And high quality protein, because of course, depending on what it is that you're eating, depends on the quality of that as well. So if we are using supplements, then we tend to sort of lean on things like whey, because again, that has a higher quality of protein over, say, some other synthetic things out there as well. But of course, the more we can get from our food, the better. So do have a think about how much if you're not very active, I would say 1.6, 1.8 per kilogram. If you are a very active woman, I would go for 2 to 2.2 grams per kilogram. So it sort of depends on your activity levels. Obviously, if you've got a coach or a PT, speak to them as well, or your doctor, etc. But we definitely want protein in there. Okay, so next thing, oily fish a few times a week, as we know, or a decent fish oil. Could also be both as well. I do think that with fish oils, and something I learned from my own coach as well, is that it actually really helps to have a lot more than sort of the baseline that, is, say in the NHS, like you once or twice a week. Personally, I do take, fish oil every single day, and a high quality one. Got the ice cream fan in the background there. As you can tell, it's absolutely boiling still, isn't it? So the window's open, and so apologies if the sound's a bit off today. But we're keeping it real, guys. We're keeping it real. So yeah, a decent fish oil, but also if you like your salmons and your good fishes, your sea basses, etc., then yeah, you get some good oil from them as well. So this will help your brain health, your joints, inflammation. Also helps, in the body, in the fat cells as well, and different sort of your nervous system and how the messages pass through the system. There's so many things that is going to help with. So you do need it for a lot of things, health-wise, and certainly later on in life, it becomes more and more important. Hence why the Mediterranean diet tends to be one of those that appears to help people live longer and sustain. Lots of different bits of research out there for that. So if you do like a Mediterranean diet, then likely that is something that you are getting anyway. So the third thing that I would recommend is calcium and vitamin D for your bones. Okay, so especially important the further you get from your last period, because that's of course when bone density really starts to decline. And it really, particularly if you're not doing any resistance training, and that's why you hear so much about strength training, resistance training for women who are going through menopause or beyond menopause, post-menopause, because it is so important. But the earlier we start it, the better, the easier it is. We've already ingrained those habits, we're going to have those stronger bones. So yeah, calcium, vitamin D, absolutely mega. So those three, once those three are covered, you're future-proofing your brain, your body, and really, a lot of your health for the next 20, 30 years. You don't have to overhaul everything overnight. You can just work with those three things alongside hopefully some strength training, some cardio training, cardiovascular health, and you're ready to go. All right, let's move on. Second question. Okay, so question 2. So I get a version of this pretty much every single week. So this is like me answering one question, but kind of with lots of different questions that attain to the same thing. So I'm doing everything right, but I cannot shift this belly fat. What am I missing? All right, so another client actually brought this up to me recently as well, and I've had a few people, ask me about core exercises, ab exercises, but I'm going to have to sort of bust that myth immediately. You cannot spot reduce fat, and I think we all know that, but it feels like we should be able to, because that's the area where we're holding the fat. So if we actually, work on the abs, surely that's going to help it. Now, I'm not saying that if you work on your abs, you are not going to get any definition in the stomach, because we have muscles in that area, of course. So if we grow those muscles, just like anywhere else, they're likely to become more prominent and closer to the skin. So even if you are holding a bit of fat in that area, sometimes you can actually still see some of the bits that are going on underneath, and definition, etc. And of course your core, all of the muscles in that area are going to hold you in tight. So there's no reason why it can't give you a different shape as well, because whatever's sitting on top will also potentially lean on the shape that you have. So absolutely do core work anyway, because that is your, that's going to hold you up. That's the center of your body. That is going to be the part of you that's going to keep you, safe from injury as well, particularly help with lower back pain, lots of different things. And, but in terms of actually the fat itself, by working on the abs and core work, that's not necessarily going to reduce that. So the truth of the matter is, particularly, as someone who has also gone through stages of prep where I did, like a photo shoot and things like that, we all hold fat in different areas of our body. So for me, it's, lower half at the moment. Now, I haven't experienced yet more fat around the abdomen. However, I have noticed a shape change. So that could be something that's, going to change for me as well, going forward, even though I have got, I've been training for years. So, and I see it on a lot of my clients, they are strong as anything, but it doesn't necessarily mean that area disappears, right? So what I would say to you is that it's likely to be, and it's not going to be the same for everybody, but it's like when you've got a stubborn bit of fat somewhere else, right? So for me, like if I'm doing the prep, if I'm taking that, there's always a place on you that's going to take the longest to go. Now, you'll find this with men as well, they'll hold a bit of fat around the stomach and it'll be the last place that it will go. And the truth is, you've just got to keep going. If you want to really get that point, it will go. But if you really want to remove that, I mean, certainly eating non-processed food, not drinking, those kind of things can also help, but it's not necessarily going to get rid of it. So I would definitely say that if you are someone who is looking to lose the fat around your middle, and that is something that you absolutely want as a goal, then unfortunately you might just have to wait until the fat has gone in a lot of other places before it's going to go there. And quite often we give up before that point because we get frustrated, we feel over-restricted. And that's why sustainable diet comes into play. And that's something that I coach very much so that over time you will start to see those things reduce. But obviously you've got to set your expectations that it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 3 months. Again, genetically we're all different. So for some it might be quicker, but certainly if it's that area, particularly if we're, during menopause or post, then the likelihood is it's going to be the last place to go. So we just need to keep moving forward until that kind of dissipates, but hopefully in a sustainable fashion so that it feels like you can keep it off. Because what actually happens is your body decides where it loses fat from. So, right, before we carry on, I want to take a quick moment to talk about today's sponsor, All Checked Up. This sponsor makes sense for us on this podcast, and the reason why is because we talk a lot, don't we, about why we might be feeling a bit off or energy dipping, sleep going a bit funny, weight not shifting in the way that it used to, just as we did earlier, and how much of that can be linked to what's actually going on hormonally. Well, All Checked Up are a UK registered pharmacy who do private blood tests, and they've got a women's health range that I think genuinely is really useful. Now, if you're London based, and I know probably most of my listeners are at this point, they have got a clinic in Baker Street where you can go get in and get your bloods done properly in person. I'm going to be going in myself as well, actually. They do evening and weekend appointments. They are available too, so that means that you can be quite flexible with it. And then you're going to get a full professional experience and the peace of mind then that comes with it. The one that I would particularly flag for the women's health range is the menopause hormone test. So if you have been wondering whether what you're feeling might be perimenopause, but you're not getting anywhere fast with your GP, this is a really good way of getting some actual answers, and hence why I'm going in as well. They've also got a full women's health range, fertility testing, cervical screening, ovarian cancer screening as well. So whatever feels most relevant to where you are right now, that's something that could be relevant for you. And if the clinic is not easy for you to get to, or you're not in London, then they do actually have home self-collection kits too, so that you can just post them back to the lab and get free results back within 48 hours. So everything is at allcheckedup.co.uk, and the link is in the show notes. So let's get back to the podcast. Okay, so question 3. So this isn't actually a question. Somebody just popped this on their intake form and it just stuck with me. And I feel like it might resonate with other people out there as well. So she just wrote, I need to add more weights. And that was it. After years of cardio classes, home workouts, she just wrote that one line. So let me turn that into a question. And I think a lot of you are probably asking, is it too late for me to start lifting if I've never done it before? So the answer is no, genuinely no. I have never once had a client come to me and say, I wish I hadn't started strength training, thank God. Not once. So what do I hear constantly is the version of, I wish I'd started sooner. And I think that's really, really key here. So you don't need to walk in and start deadlifting your body weight on day one. You start where you are. And the only thing that matters is that. And that is that you start. So that would be just something that I would just put out there as for one of the things that I feel that would resonate for a lot of people out there at this point, that might be thinking about strength training, might be thinking that it's the right thing to do, might be finding the idea of it quite intimidating. Just start, you won't regret it. So this one came through after a menopause talk and seminar that I did last year. And I really liked it because it's a fair challenge. So is this strength training and menopause thing actually backed by anything, or is it just the latest fitness trend? And I think that's a really, really interesting question. So there's a lot of noise out there. We have a lot on Instagram, we have a lot all over social media. So here's a short version. So there was a study at the University of Exeter where women did 30 to 35 minute strength sessions 4 times a week for 12 weeks. And the results? So about 19% were stronger, had better flexibility, better balance, and more lean muscle tissue as well. And here's the bit that I really like. So it worked basically the same whether the women were pre, peri, or post-menopausal. So no, I would definitely answer that this isn't hype. It's one of the better research things that you can actually do for yourself at this stage of your life. But it is a fair question because there's so much going on now and so many coaches jumping on the back of it that actually, and coaches are not necessarily anywhere near that stage of life, but it is an area that is being talked about a lot. So I do see why people might think it is just more of a hype, but it's absolutely definitely not. Finding the right person to guide you through those stages at that time of life that maybe understands your side, understands how your hormones might work and how that might impact you, and be able to empathize with you as well, but in the way that works for you. So last question for today. I get this in 100 different types of wordings as well, but it always comes down to the same thing. So I know exactly what I should be doing with my food and my training, so why can't I stick to it? Okay, so it's a really interesting question, that, isn't it? Because we know what to do, but why is it not happening? And here's what I'd say. So it's almost never a knowledge problem. Now sometimes it is. I do have people that just need the knowledge, but you know what to do. But what's usually missing is it's the structure for us to survive when life takes over in a different way. Because willpower runs out, motivation sometimes isn't there, but a plan that doesn't depend on that doesn't, if that makes sense. So actually having a structure, having a plan to follow is kind of the root of staying and sticking with things. So instead of asking why can't I stick to it, try asking what would make this easier to do on my worst days, not the best one. And I know there's a number of different podcasts that we've had that probably work towards that as well. So do listen to previous podcasts if you haven't already, that might help and advise you in a little bit more detail, maybe one of the topic podcasts. But by asking, what would make this easier to do on my worst day, not my best one, actually that's usually where the real answer is. And this is one of the ways that I coach my clients. I get them to reflect, I get them to sort of understand where those barriers are and what's going to make it easier for them, so we can really find the route that works for them and we keep them accountable and I guide them through. So if you are looking for a bit more guidance and you think that, my approach could work for you, we could just have a chat and see whether there's something that we can do together to help you towards your goals. You can find me at Instagram at yourcoach_Sian. And as well, my details are in the show notes as well. So that's the 5 questions for today. So if you've got a question that you want answered on the show, then anything, doesn't matter what it is, even if it is just a statement or a comment, then go for that as well. Doesn't matter how random it is either. So send it over on the comments here, or again, you can find me at yourcoach_Sian or Sian Hill Coaching on Facebook as well. And also there's my link tree on my bio on Instagram as well, that you can ask me a question at any time. Okay, and just before we go today, just a reminder about today's sponsor, All Checked Up. So if anything we've talked about today has got you thinking about your hormones or your health, then their London clinic in Baker Street is the place to go. Evening and weekends appointments available. And they've also got a full women's health range online if you can't get to the clinic as well. So you'll find everything at allcheckedup.co.uk, and the link is in the show notes as well. All right, well, thank you again for listening, and we'll see you again next time.